Republican Party nominee, Congressman Robert Hurt of Chatham. And Democratic Party nominee, John Douglas of Fauquier County.
As I have traveled across the 5th District over the last year and a half, I can tell you that the top issue on the minds of the people that I represent is jobs. It is jobs, and there's no question about that. And if you look at what happened in Washington prior to the time that I was elected, you will see people who perhaps hoping to create jobs by creating more government jobs, by hiring 16,000 new IRS agents to implement the Obamacare bill. When you look at the actions that have been taken during the last Congress and during this current president's term, you will see things that have not made the economy better. They've made things worse. You remember the president promised that if we adopted the stimulus package, the $1 trillion that we borrowed from China, if we adopted that, unemployment would not go above 8%. It went over 8%. It went to 9%. It went to 10%. Danville, Virginia. Right here in Danville, Virginia, we have 11% unemployment. In Martinsville, Virginia, just down the road, we have 16% unemployment. For the last year and a half, we on the House side have worked. We have worked for bipartisan legislation that would create jobs, that would reduce regulations, would reduce costs. We have worked for bills that would adopt a reasonable and responsible energy and policy in this country, something that would help families, something that would help businesses and help our farmers. So we have worked on the House side. Harry Reid hasn't gotten the message. Nancy Pelosi hasn't gotten the message. The President hasn't gotten the message. But the bottom line is that's what the American people want. That's what they're yearning for. And I'm proud, by the way, proud to have the endorsement of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the NFIB, because those are the folks that are represented in this room that create the jobs in this country, not the government.
My turn?
Your turn.
Well, thanks. You know, folks, everybody knows that education is the key to our future as a country. It is absolutely the key to everything we do. But we're not in a good place right now, folks. We're not in a good place in Virginia. We're not in a good place in the 5th District. Some of our rural counties are struggling because the tax base is down. Some of our rural counties, our teachers haven't had a pay raise in 5 years. I've talked to teachers in all 22 counties. And let me tell you, folks, I'm talking to public school teachers. Susan and I have 2 children in public school. Our youngest son is autistic. And we could not get him educated in the rural schools where our farm is. We had to move him to a different school because they don't have special education in that school. And let me tell you, folks, if you think that the kids in our rural counties are getting the same kind of education as the kids in our more wealthy counties, I'm here to tell you that they're not. And that's wrong, folks. That's wrong. We should not be discriminating against the children in the 5th District. My opponent wanted to double student loan rates. My opponent wants to get rid of the Department of Education, whose mission is to bring these schools up to a level so that every child in Virginia gets an equal opportunity for an education. And let me tell you something, folks. I was involved in this, deeply involved in this, long time before I ever ran for Congress. I'm on the board of the Virginia Early Childhood Foundation, and I'm on a board with 100 other generals and admirals who know that education is a national security issue. This is not something to be politicized. This is something that we have to reach a bipartisan position on, and it's shameful to try to invoke political bipartisan bickering when it comes to the education for our children.
But I can tell you one of the places that I appreciate as much as any place is our Capitol Rotunda. And in our Rotunda in Washington, D.C., you have statues of different figures that were important in the history of this great nation, people who have seen crisis. And I often find myself there in thinking about those who have gone before as we face what seem to be impossible challenges. Well, let me begin by saying this. As I travel across the 5th District, I listen very carefully to the people that I represent, and there is no question that the regulatory structure in this country is killing jobs. And you see examples of that all across the 5th District. Whether you talk to the peach farmer in Nelson County who talks about all the different regulatory agencies that govern his operation on the hillside in Nelson County, where he and his family have grown peaches for generations. And he says, you know, I've got 8, 10, 12 federal and state agencies up here on my case all the time. He said, all I'm trying to do is grow peaches. That's all he's trying to do is grow peaches. And as you travel, especially in the farming community, but on Main Street business and family farms, you hear that all the time. And obviously, uranium mining is something that takes place in this country, and it's something that's highly regulated. And I would never advocate reducing the regulatory burden on something like uranium mining in this country. And I think that that is our responsibility to always to balance that, and I think that that's certainly the way I feel about it.
And I just want to jog your memory a little bit. You know, when the Farm Bill was going through, one of the members of Congress put forward an amendment to make sure that the Clean Air Act was in there, and Congressman Hurt voted against that. So he seems to have forgotten one of the votes that he had there that would have tried to take the EPA out of the regulation of uranium mines. Now let me tell you, I was Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, and Acquisition. I bought every nuclear reactor that the new Navy bought for 4 or 5 years. I know about uranium. It's dangerous. And if it gets into your water and it gets into your air, it's going to ruin the South Side. This is as clear a case as we have ever seen about good versus greed. We don't need the uranium for our country. We don't need it for Southside. The only people that are going to benefit from it are a very few people that are investors, including Congressman Hurt's family, and we don't need that mine.
Thank you, John Douglas. 30 seconds, Mr. Hurt.
Well, you know, I think that what we've seen out of politicians in Washington, D.C. for far too long are politicians who care more about re-election or more about election than they do about substantive issues. And what my opponent has done in lying about this issue, about my interest in uranium mining, I have none. I have none.
No applause.
But what he has done is he has dragged this issue, an issue, by the way, Mr. Douglas, I think you know is a state issue. He has shamefully brought this issue for one purpose, so he can get elected. And people are tired of that.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Douglas, people are tired of that.
Thank you, Robert Hurt. John Douglas, 30 seconds.
You know, it's kind of funny that he keeps calling me Mr. My name's General Douglas, okay, folks? I don't think he's a reverend. But this is not just a state issue. The state does all kinds of things. And what we need is a congressman that's going to go and protect the people of the 5th District. It doesn't matter what they do in Richmond. If it's the wrong thing to do, we got to stop it, folks. And it is the wrong thing to do, and he knows it.